Well, it is hard to know where to start. I'm not sure how people are going to feel about that to be continued at the end. And people have to make their own judgments about how the candidates handled themselves tonight, who made the better case, who offered plans for the future, who told the truth, and who deserves to be president. Those are all judgments that are going to be made over the next several days and weeks. But I have to speak personally here as somebody who's watched presidential debates for 40 years, as somebody who's moderated presidential debates, as someone who's prepared candidates for presidential debates, as someone who's covered presidential debates. That was the worst presidential debate I have ever seen in my life. A lot more heat than light over some 98 minutes. I want to go to the room right now. John Carl, you were there in the room. You cover the president. Your thoughts?
George, the debate was a total mess. It was a mess of interruptions, petty insults. I was in touch with some people on the floor who told me they were stunned by what they were seeing transpire on that stage. Donald Trump came across like a bully. There was an avalanche of untruth statements that came out. Joe Biden did not have a particularly steady performance. I could say, really honestly, it looked as if both men lost this debate. And in that sense, the real loser is Donald Trump. Because as we said at the start, Donald Trump was the one that needed to change the dynamic of this race. He is the one that is losing. He is the one that needed to change the trajectory. He is the one that needed a big win. And that did not happen tonight.
Mary Bruce?
Well, Joe Biden's campaign is feeling very good right now. They came into tonight with a goal not to get dragged into the mud with Donald Trump, but to instead speak directly to the American people about what they feel are the issues that matter most. And the campaign aide tells me that every single time that Joe Biden essentially went around the president and stared straight down the barrel of the camera and talked to the American public, spoke to voters directly about a vaccine, about the economy, COVID, about election integrity, they say every single one of those moments they were winning. George, this was just remarkable. I mean, when you take a step back and you think about the fact that in a normal debate, if you were to call your opponent a clown, racist, the worst president ever, to tell him to shut up or to shush, normally that would be considered crossing a line. But here tonight, that was part of a concerted strategy by Joe Biden to try and show that he could keep his cool, actually. It's part of an effort by Joe Biden to show that he can be the adult in the room, that he can be the leader who can guide this country out of these really turbulent times. And so over and over again, he simply refused to give credence to the president's attacks, even though, let's be honest, there were parts of that debate that were simply unwatchable because the two of them were just talking over and over each other. I mean, here in the room, it was really astounding. And it was apparent as you watched that the president was often turned to the former vice president, pointing his finger at him, speaking directly to him. Joe Biden instead staring straight down that camera, trying to speak to the American people, making his point. The Biden campaign says all you saw tonight from the president was chaos. What you saw from Joe Biden was stability, they say.
Thank you, Mary Bruce. Chris Christie, you helped prepare the president for this debate. Was that the debate you prepared for?
No. But what I'll tell you is that I listened to some of the commentary already, and I think there's people missing some things. You know, first off, Rom said earlier that it was the vice president's job tonight to reassure. I don't think that's a reassuring performance by the vice president tonight. He looked very shaky at many times during this debate. His numbers were way off. He would wander off in mid-sentence and then used lots of name-calling and insulting language. That's not rising above it. I have to disagree with Mary, or at least what she's conveying from the Biden folks. And yeah, I think on the Trump side, it was too hot. I mean, you know, listen, you come in and decide you want to be aggressive, and I think that was a right thing to be aggressive, but that was too hot. And so I think that what happens is, with all that heat, as you said before, you lose the light. That potentially can be fixed. Maybe, maybe not. We'll have to see on the Trump side. On the Biden side, I'd be very concerned that his problems can't be fixed. Because if you're not up to being able to stand up there for 90 minutes and be consistently coherent, people are going to wonder whether you're going to be able to do that when you're sitting behind the desk in the Oval Office. So I think that's the issue that got raised tonight.
Emmanuel.
I think Joe Biden did a smart strategy of a rope-a-dope. Because, in fact, the president looked totally out of control, and Chris Wallace basically said that. And the president needed to change people's perception. He looked exactly like the bully that people have had exhausted by for 3.5 years. I think the vice president steadied as the night went on. When he talked about COVID, when he talked about health care, when he talked about, and he looked right at the American people and said, this is about your family and your direction, when he also talked about the integrity of bringing people together, and also when he rebutted him about his son Beau in service and not calling him a patsy for serving. I thought those were his best moments. There are moments he did who wouldn't get rattled when you're having somebody just scream at you all night. And the fact that Chris Wallace basically said it, like, hold on here, and there are rules here. And so I think the president hurt himself by only having a fifth gear. There was no second gear, there was no third gear, and I think, given that, I think the vice president practiced a pretty good rope-a-dope strategy.
David Muir, we're going to have to do it on GMA tomorrow. You're going to have to do it on World News Tonight tomorrow night. What is the lead of this debate?
Well, you know, as we were going into this tonight, George, one of the things that you and I were talking about is the level of exhaustion in this country. We have to remember that the backdrop for this entire debate is this coronavirus pandemic. 200,000 American lives have been lost. The economy, millions on unemployment, and people are exhausted. They want to know, when is this going to end? Who has a plan to help guide the way through? And you have to wonder if tonight did anything to further that argument or put people at home, and that's what we always think about here as we do the news, are the folks at home. Did it put anyone at peace about the future of our country in the immediate months and years to come and how we navigate our way out of this moment? We talked about President Trump. This was a unique opportunity for him to come in and say, here's what I will do over my next 4 years. I'm not sure we heard a lot of that tonight. And Joe Biden had to come in and we said, no unforced errors, don't get pulled into the personal attacks. I do think he was fairly steady in temperament and tone, but I do wonder if people will be frustrated at home, no matter how difficult it was on that stage and in those moments, that they didn't hear enough really from either about their specific plans of guiding this nation forward.
One thing that is getting a lot of notice, Lindsay Davis online, the president refused to condemn white supremacists.
Right, and he said he would. When he was asked, he said, sure, I will. And then he ended up essentially giving a call to action saying, stand back and stand by. That was something that really got my attention. And I can't say I was surprised, but it was really a moment that I think that people, especially in the black community, heard loud and clear.
Got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Back now after this first presidential debate, I want to go to Republican strategist Sarah Fagan. You said that Joe Biden had a tougher job coming into the night. Is that the way you feel coming out of it?
Look, I think this was a total food fight. I don't think either of these candidates won. There were moments where the president was setting up the choice in this election, but they just devolved, and they devolved too quickly. And the challenge for the president, I agree with John Carl, that in a place where he doesn't command the stage in a presidential way, he's not getting ahead. He's down 7 points going into this debate. I think he's probably still down 7 points after it.
Yvette.
I think this debate was an unmitigated disaster. And I think Trump's performance has shown me exactly why our country is in the state that we're in right now. The fact that we've survived to this point with that kind of leadership, I think, is amazing. I think, you know, Joe Biden's challenge was, as my grandmother said, don't make sense out of foolishness, it'll make a fool out of you. I mean, it was so much foolishness. I don't think there was a way for him to really cut through and have the moments that I think he desired at the top. They were just completely out of control. And I think the people who lose are the American people who, you know, as David has said, are looking for hope, are looking for real direction, are looking for leadership. Joe Biden did the best he can. And frankly, out of the gate, he did a much better job. By the end, it was clear that even he was getting unsettled. And I think got a little too hot towards the end, too. I wish he had taken a deep breath. But he had a huge challenge because Donald Trump really, really was a disaster. And I'm really, really afraid for our country, unfortunately, if he wins another term. Based on that performance.
Thank you, Yvette. Matthew Dowd, you've worked for both Democrats and Republicans. Of course, you worked for President George W. Bush. Your thoughts?
Well, I think this was an embarrassment. If you were in a foreign country, you look at our United States right now, if you watch that and think this was an embarrassment, and if you're sitting in our country, it's embarrassing, and that embarrassment falls directly at the feet of Donald Trump. I actually think there was a winner tonight, and that winner was Joe Biden, because if you're president of the United States and you're the incumbent, you have to convince people that everything's good in America and put me through another 4 years of this. And if you watch that debate, as a citizen of the United States, you're not thinking everything's great in America right now. So Joe Biden, yeah, he had good moments. He had some moments where he had a hard time dealing with this. And as I said, going into the debate, that Donald Trump's a bull in a china shop. Well, the bull was let loose in the china shop. The moderator tried as best they could to control it. Joe Biden tried to fend it off. But when you look at the end of this, Donald Trump had to convince the American public that 4 years 4 more years of this is a good thing. The exact opposite conclusion, I think, they're going to come to after watching that debate.
Martha Raddatz, I don't envy anybody the job Chris Wallace had tonight, but I wonder what lessons moderators going forward, supposed to be 2 more presidential debates, a vice presidential debate, are going to take from this.
As I said going in, it takes a lion tamer in a debate with Donald Trump, and you needed 10 lion tamers tonight. I think Chris Wallace tried. I think at some point you just have to stop it. It was not a presidential debate. It was mud wrestling. And as David pointed out, in the middle of a pandemic. I have been in touch with some voters who I met on our cross-country trip. There was one man who was leaning towards Trump, but going into the debate tonight, he was leaning towards Biden, but he did not like the name calling. He did not like Biden dropping to the level, he said, of Donald Trump. And a lot of talk about the military tonight. As you know, George, I'm in touch with a lot of people in the military. One of them said to me tonight, this is the most shameful interaction between 2 leaders ever. I am sad and ashamed.
Martha Raddatz, thanks very much. We've got to take one more break. We'll be right back. Just a bit of time left here in our post-debate analysis. Cecilia Vega, you cover the White House every day as our senior White House correspondent.
Not a lot of undecided voters left in this race, George. For those that are leaning one way or the other, I don't think they got a lot out of this tonight. I keep thinking about the 200,000 people dead in this pandemic, the high rate of unemployment that we are looking at right now. And the takeaway for most Americans after watching this tonight, I think, will be exhaustion.
And one of the things we are already seeing online in the wake of this debate, a lot of people wondering, will there be more debates after this? Will we see the final 2 presidential debates, the vice presidential debates? A lot of people disappointed in what they saw tonight, wondering if it's something we should see again. That's going to be it for us right now. We're going to have much more on Nightline and ABC News Live. Of course, I'll have a lot more tomorrow on Good Morning America. For many of you right now, it's time for your late local news. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.